Hey, welcome back my crazy coding friends. Here we are with this equally crazy project. This is the MATH64 extension library thing. If you look at the screen, you'll see the project's changed a lot. We've got our test scripts, which was built in. You can phrase them from the internal source with a bit of hackery. The library itself now is a lot simple. Well, we've got two parts of the library. We've got the old low-level functions which are exposed because they're exposed always if they're included from a DLL. But we've also got these other couple of libraries here which are helper libraries to do secondary things. This is the syntax highlighting code split away from the main project. This is some code for debugging. This is the disassembly stuff. Now, if you're using MATH64 in general, you wouldn't need these extras. You don't need them. This is just for my own development, right? You could use them. I don't care if you do, and I'll include those with the package as we put them up in the forums, I guess. You know, they're there for you to mess around with. As for holding your hand to use this stuff, well, sorry, but don't come asking me for questions. Hopefully the code will be pretty as self-explanatory as possible. We'll add some examples, and then from there you're on your own. If anything's fixed or updated, you know, make a note of those things, of course, but I don't want to be bogged down offering support for something that may or may not be helpful to people. But this example here has grown a lot. You know, the reason for it really is just I wrapped it up into a bit of a menu based. If you've seen the previous examples, you know they're all running through the debugger. So I'll run this thing now. Alright, so we're up and running. We've got a couple of scripts preloaded. This looks a lot like the privacy editing tool, because basically it's the same code. I just drag that out of that, put it into this. Now if I want to move between scripts that are loaded at the moment, I can just use the arrow keys to move through different scripts. It shows me visually what script we're looking at, and if I want to run something, I'm going to run. We've got two windows. We've got the code window again. I can scroll through, syntax highlighted. More of a novelty really than any practical usage. This code is not compiled, so we have no variables in the bytecode. So we can compile. Now we've got the variables that were found in this bit of code, including all the temporaries. We'll probably get rid of those. We can hover over one of these and it shows us what the value is. If we hit run, the script runs. Now you can do something interesting, I think, in this particular version, is that you can click on a variable and you can modify it. So normal x is now 1000.12. If I run the script again, that'll get overwritten back to where it was before, because down here somewhere that calculation is taking place. I have no idea now. Down here somewhere. So we've declared this pair of variables, normal x, normal y, set up a 2D vector for speed. We're generating computing the normal from the speed vector and overwriting it into these two variables. So we can see this visually on screen, what's happening. If I go to, where'd it go? If I go to here, just clear that out, put 0 or something, put 0 in here, we can see that it's overriding those two variables. When we go get normal 2D from the speed vector, because normal x and normal y are in memory consecutively, they're declared one after the other, it'll just treat them like they're a two-dimensional vector, because that's all the vector is. It's just two values in a little structure. Hit run. Hey, there we are, back again. So hover through there, scroll up and down, all the kind of good stuff. Now, I was going to implement a view thing here to switch between whether this view here is the source code view or it's the disassembly view, just for test purposes, really. And what we're kind of getting here is, if we go back to here and we quit, for example, you can load a script into memory, by the way. You can just go to load script, the dialog comes up, good old dialog, and expression examples. Let's go to that one there. It doesn't move to the script by default, you would just select it for the time being. Expression examples, that's the one there. No, that's alright, that's it. Okay, go run. I don't know if this one compiles. Okay, it did compile. Let's see if we actually have... It looks like it's okay, actually. It looks like this has got mostly comparative and sort of Boolean kind of stuff testing in it. This is all in floats, by the way, so yeah, it's a bit dicey in floats doing this, like trying to AND the two Booleans together. Not the best idea in the world. It actually does an equality test for these things here, so they're a little bit slower than what they might be normally. Hit run, so what we get. I don't know this code off the top of my head now, so I'm not that familiar with what it's doing. Anyway, so you can load something, put it back in. I'll add a few more trinkety type things to the demo, probably after I release this actually. What I'm trying to do at the moment is to make sure the use case stuff is all okay. And what I mean by that is that this math library, MATH64, we have enough sort of simple scripting interface that you can load a script, compile it, execute it, and read a variable and write a variable from it. This is the high level interface stuff that's wrapping up the low level interface. Now you could just get if you load a script and compile it, for example, you could get the pointer to that block of code and call the execute function yourself. This function here yourself, you can do that, that's perfectly fine. The high level versions are just wrapped up to be a bit more safe. In other words, there's a bit more please and thank yous kind of going on with this other stuff, as you would expect, really. But they'll be left in there for you to mess around with. You'll be expected to mess around with this kind of stuff. And I think by writing some actual programs that use it, we'll work out what stuff we actually need, what stuff we don't really need to do, what stuff is beneficial and what isn't. You know, I suspect doing combination jobs inside the script was actually going to be much quicker than doing them inside PB for the time being. But we'll see, I guess. You know, I must get around to writing to doing like the particle demos and those kind of things. Another one I thought was probably a good candidate for speeding up would be the fractal demo. I'll have to dig that code up from somewhere. I mean, someone wrote one a long time ago. I've been using that same version to benchmark the runtime's performance pretty much all the way through. If you didn't know, there's a bunch of these old tests that were written, geez, probably 2004 or something like that, 2005 or something. And they've been used, we've been comparing the performance of PB with those same applications, you know, on a yearly basis, pretty much. So in some cases, I've got old executables of those that were made in very old versions of PB, like pre-release versions of PB. One of the main benchmark ones, for example, is so old that there's kind of a handful of these basic math operations that it does, and one of the first versions of PB runs that test on my old computer, this is, which is the Athlon system. I think it runs in like about 3 or 4 seconds, maybe 4 or 5 seconds, I can't remember now. And these days PB165 can run that same test. It's just a brute force test of doing a bunch of simple operations, but doing them, hundreds of thousands of times to see how changes to the runtime affect performance over time. And I think the modern one runs at about 1.4 seconds or something. So it's a lot quicker than what it used to be. But not a great deal faster than 164. In general purpose, operation, you'll find the 165 is quicker across the board. Some things it's not quicker at all at. Other things it's a lot quicker at. So it's always going to be a bit of a gamble there. Right, so this is the state of PB64, the math library. This is revision 8, we'll call it, I guess. What I'll do is I'll dump it out as is, pretty much, and you can play with it the way it is today. I've utilised the text menus from that other program. I've made a few changes to it, but not a great deal. Added some things like preserving the explicit state. Added something else to it as well, so it's slightly different, but not a great deal. If you're not familiar with that, it was used on in this particular example, in the showcase, the privacy editor. Yeah, there it is. Are there screenshots of this, or are there videos of it? The particular tool here is really all about taking a series of frames and applying a mask over the top of it to blur out something from the background. So normally like a face or something like that. If you want to keep, make a bit of video and keep people's privacy intact. You can do it with a lot of video editing tools, but I wanted to make my own little separate tool for very specific tasks, actually. The same idea of, you could take a bunch of frames and attach a sprite to a frame, like put a hat on something, or put something in someone's hand, or attach a message to it or something like that. That's the kind of thing that this does. It's not in a releasable form. It's meant to be a tool that I use for myself, and it does what it needs to do. Whereas the math stuff, we're trying to get this to a point where it can be used by you guys, messed around with, used and abused, as they say. So we've come a fair way already. We've probably got, probably another couple of revisions to go through to get this thing to a point where it's going to be comfortable for people to use. We'll try and get as much information about what functions are in this thing and what they do in the actual release area of the forum, which is the resources area for those people who've logged into their account on the forum, and it'll be in the subfolder for resources and then under libraries, pretty much. So yeah, but at the moment, so we're just doing it out in public because we just don't care. I mean, yeah, well, here you go. I was laying it out what I wanted this to do and what I didn't want it to do. Back to here. All right. Hopefully it's somewhat informative about what we're up to with this thing. I hope you see there's a lot of changes have been made to it. We're getting closer to something that's kind of cool, something that's kind of useful. Hopefully you guys will appreciate it and give it a bit of a go. Until next time, see you later. Have a good time and keep coding. Bye.